So you can see in the short videos the problems that this young man had with avoiding doing anything that he really didn't want to do. And he was reported by his caregivers as being that way. He would whine, cry, scream, sometimes becoming physically aggressive. And whenever that would happen, so part of the problems is the adults would give in to him. They'd help him, give him food, give him attentions, or asking him what he wanted. He would throw temper tantrums and throw objects when he wanted to go somewhere, and that resulted in temporarily being able to escape that transition of that he didn't want to do. He was also throwing temper tantrums and throwing objects when he was asked to share, and that when he would throw those temper tantrums, he got what he wanted. The adults would withdraw the demands because they wanted that behavior to stop, and so not making him do what they wanted him to do effectively made it stop, but it also reinforced that behavior. So he was also likely to wander off and run, and then be physically aggressive. And again, the adults would take him to where he wanted to go and coax him and physically help him. So what they wanted to teach him is to ask for attention from his parents. They wanted him to say, come here please, or come play with me. They wanted him to say, help me, when he's frustrated, not bang his head and throw things. And he wanted him to be able to say, I don't want to, or I'm all done, or I want to go, instead of throwing himself on the floor and having a temper tantrum. So they wanted him to be taught to say stop, give it back. They wanted him to learn how to share, and they wanted him to be taught to wait with a visual cue or a timer, 3 more minutes, 2 more minutes, 1 more minute, that sort of thing. With the time slowly increasing to 10 minutes, so he'd have to wait that long, and he'd have to entertain himself and occupy himself with, they say he had a hobby box, and he would get praise for waiting. So those are the behaviors that they wanted to create for him, which are wonderful behaviors, but they also have to come up with a way to prevent the behaviors they don't want. So what they did is provided Brendan with a predictable visual schedule, and most of us know that visual schedules work really well with those who are autistic. It helps them figure out if there's a change in their routine, and it's very comforting to them. Caregivers give them visual strategies and all over the house, and those were cues for Brendan to ask for help. He was everywhere. He could be able to point to a help me please. So instead of having a temper tantrum, he had other choices to get his voice out there, which was pointing to this visual cue. So if he had a need that cannot be met, his caregiver could say, I know you want blank, I'm sorry, that is not a choice, and then followed by 2 choices. So this child was still given a choice, which is empowering to anybody, really. You know you can't get what you want, but these are 2 acceptable choices. And I'm sorry, I still do that with my own kids. Okay, so one of the things that they did to prevent the behaviors is using simple language. Mommy is leaving, goodbye. First, Daddy talks on the phone. Then Daddy plays trains with Brandon. First, then next, that kind of thing. Very simple language. And they would also plan non-preferred activities just before highly preferred activities. So if there's something that Brandon wanted to do really, really, really bad, and there is something he doesn't want to do at all, that would normally be a huge temper tantrum, they would use that strategy first then. So first you do this non-preferred activity, then you get rewarded by doing this awesome thing that you really want to do. So they came up with several, I'm talking a huge list of really amazing strategies that are actually very easy to follow. They do not punish, there's no yelling. It's all very calm, and it puts a lot of control to Brandon to make choices and to speak for himself, because part of the problem is he can't communicate his needs, and he has learned to communicate by crying and throwing things, and that's been working for him. Nobody can blame him, but being that his brain doesn't access, the logic the same way ours does, we cannot expect him to speak our language. We need to find the language that works for him and teach him what behaviors are socially acceptable. So, as you can see at the second video that y'all watched, how successful that child went from crying to throwing himself on the floor to having to be picked up to happily walking in to a library and being engaged and a happy little dude. And that's really what we want, is for these children to be as functional as possible in life and to be happy, just like we want for any of our other kids.